You were in a state of borderline shock
Flap.
before PMQs
I was in a bit
started.
of a flap.
Correctly so. But to address it for people who don't follow politics as closely as you do, and that includes me, actually, because I needed to clarify a couple of things with you during the break. Why on earth are Labour accepting this Tory? They should let her become an independent and put up a decent Labour candidate at the election, not this ship jumper who propped up the Johnson government. And Rob speaks for many when he asks that question.
Has Mike Tapp been texting you already?
I haven't heard from Mike Tapp, but he was certainly expecting to fight Dover and Deal for the Labour Party at some point between now and Christmas. So go on, why?
Look, you heard Keir Starmer set out exactly why he's done this in PMQs when he introduced Natalie Elphicke, who it sounds like absolutely stunned the chamber when she walked in and sat behind him at Prime Minister's Questions just a few minutes ago. But for him, it's why he's able to essentially now launch a two-pronged attack on the Conservative Party by saying you've got Dan Poulter leaving over the NHS, and now you've got Natalie Elphicke, a hardline, staunch Conservative MP from the town of Dover and Deal, leaving over immigration, borders and boats, and also housing as well, another key Labour battleground that I'm sure they want to make the most of. And look, this defection statement from her is absolutely seething. I think the bit I wanted to pick out was where she said, the elected Prime Minister was ousted in a coup led by the unelected Rishi Sunak. Like, this is scathing stuff from a Conservative MP. And we were discussing off air whether this might be a tactical move from her in an attempt to hold on to her seat in the onslaught of a Labour advance. And of course, that will go through any MP's head at the moment when they're thinking about what to do in the upcoming election. Just checked her majority. It's about 12,000. So probably on the borderline of, could potentially be losing her seat and may be using this as an attempt to try and hang on to it. But, this really is something
she might
spectacular.
Not be standing. We have to bear that in mind. This might be a coup de grace.
I don't believe her statement has mentioned that she's going to step down, like Dan Poulter did when he announced his defection.
But equally it hasn't stated. I mean, she might want to have conversations. So I'm just saying, I'm just being uncharacteristically cautious.
She's calling for a general election.
Yeah, which suggests she wants to fight
She wants to fight and stand it. But to have somebody who's, regularly been assaulting Rishi Sunak on the right of his party for so long and not doing enough on small boats, and she's talking about small boats to biosecurity. Rishi Sunak's government is now failing to keep our borders safe and secure. And the idea that she now thinks Rishi Sunak is not the one to do that and that Keir Starmer is the one to keep our borders safe will be such a strong argument that the Labour Party couldn't have resisted it.
But, the point... Yes, exactly that, is that the short-term political arithmetic of a defection outweighs any question marks that may hang over either Natalie Elphicke's suitability to be admitted into the Labour Party or her electability on any ticket at all. So the people of Dover and Deal perhaps pushed into the back seat when the priorities of the Parliamentary Labour Party...
And 2 in 2 weeks, of course. Let's not forget.
2 for 2.
So
what are the odds
on
that? It's 3 in a row, going for the hat
trick.
Well,
we all just sort of laughed when there were suggestions that more were to follow, because usually politicians say this all the time. They rarely ever follow through with something like this. But I'm sure Keir Starmer will be buoyed by this, and I'm sure there will be more talks going on.
It could be 3 for 3.
But yes, it's not what Rishi Sunak wants on the aftermath of a bruising local election results to have
brings us
another
to,
MP defect.
Which brings us to, I think we both Googled the worst PMQs ever during the interim of that. Quite a few of the professional commentators have already had their say. He would have been so completely rattled by the defection. He looked it and he sounded it, and if anyone not fully across the rubric of PMQs, you never ask the leader of the opposition a question. You throw it in but to actually be reduced not only to citing that letter that was left in the Treasury, the joke stroke tradition of saying there isn't any money left, started, I think, by the Conservative Chancellor Reginald Maudling. That's desperate. He didn't break glass and release Jeremy Corbyn, which he often does when he's deaf, probably because he was too rattled even to remember to reach for that desperate lever.
The PM believes that he spends too much time preparing for Prime Minister's questions. He believes that it's essentially, I think, a waste of some of his time. And I think, you can't prepare for this, can you? You can't prepare for somebody literally defecting seconds before you come on. It's not something that you would have known. and it's not something you can prepare for. And he was rightly rattled throughout the entire thing. He was on the back foot. He looked a bit like a rabbit stuck in the headlights,
and there's nowhere to hide, is there? Because I'm not a normal human being, Natasha, as you've probably been here long enough now to have established this. So I quite like standing up in front of rooms full of people and talking. And
strange man.
For most people, even the thought of a best man speech can be absolutely terrifying. People find it is one of the most... But so everyone has got a vague idea of what it's like, even if it was confined to an anxiety dream, when you can't get away, but your heart is going at 10 to the dozen, you're swallowing in the wrong places, your nerves, the adrenaline is flooding through your body, filling it with fight or flight type responses, which are not appropriate at the and you just
that sounds like me half an hour ago.
and that is exactly what. Yeah, but that was excitement. That wasn't terror. And he was terrified.
Yeah, and he couldn't get away. And he still can't.
Worst you've ever seen?
Not worst PMQs from him. It's up there with one of the worst I think we've seen from Rishi. Yes, I think they've run out of road. They've run out of things to say. He's slinging the same old insults back at him, the same old bad jokes coming up again and again. And I just don't think it's landing. The mud isn't sticking anymore.
I think it was John Harris of The Guardian saying he just died on his feet in the House of Commons, which is pretty close to the truth, isn't it? Natalie Elphicke, I couldn't remember what it was. It was this.
You voted for fire and rehire. You voted for fire and rehire. You voted for fire and rehire. Shame on you, man. Shame on you. 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 Shame on you.
I will be marching for the jobs in Dover, for the people of Dover, and for the disgusting behaviour of P&O and DP World.
The steel workers, the coal miners, the shipbuilders, everybody.
I am here for the people of Dover.
No, you're not.
No, you're not. That sounded like Monty Python. We cut that a bit too early. What did he say? Probably swore. That was when she tried to join the protest over the P&O sackings from a few years ago, a couple of years ago, I think March 22. And it was pointed out by the crowd that she'd actually voted against Labour's attempts to put a stop to precisely the sort of fire and hire practices or not precisely actually, to the sort of fire and rehire practices that P&O were employing. So she's not destined to become a particularly sparkly jewel in the crown of the Parliamentary Labour Party. But as I keep trying to stress, it doesn't matter. A defection is not counted according to who has defected, but the defection itself is the prize.
Yes, and it's a huge blow for the Prime Minister to lose one of his MPs, not just because of parliamentary arithmetic, where we're losing Tory MPs like flies at the moment in the House of Commons, which makes him passing any more legislation even more difficult in the days and weeks to come as we tick down to that general election. Of course, it's a huge embarrassment, and it just gives Keir Starmer yet another stick to bat him with. So I imagine they'll run with this one. Although saying that, this is someone I think slightly more well known than Dan Poulter, I think it's fair to say, within the Conservative.
Not necessarily for good
Party.
Reasons. I mean, partly because her husband left in such unsavoury circumstances, she subsequently, I think, got into trouble for defending him. But anyway, all of that will no doubt be rehearsed in the Tory newspapers tomorrow as they mount a massive rearguard action to pretend that they don't really mind at all.
I can't wait to see the PLP, the Parliamentary Labour Party meeting this week. It's going to be a fiery one.
There's going to be some unhappy people.
Poor Mike Tapp, he's going to be devastated.
We need to keep an eye on that because there's still a slim chance she won't get to fight the seat, but it's unlikely she'd have agreed. If she wanted to, she would not have defected unless she was promised that she could.
Exactly, that's exactly the way it would work.
Oh, my days.
That was exciting, wasn't it?
It was. It's not over yet. Just a word on Stephen Flynn. He is owning Gaza from the point of view of people that are unhappy with the way Israel is conducting itself, with the exception of Sadiq Khan, which again the Prime Minister reached for rather desperately, just to clarify the accusation that he was equating Israel's right to defend itself with the Hamas terror attack. What Sadiq Khan actually did was point out that 14,000 children have been killed by the IDF and Benjamin Netanyahu's policies, and that he is capable of condemning both that and the murders undertaken, the 1,200 murders of Israeli civilians undertaken by Hamas on October the 7th. But that's not a Labour MP. That's a Labour mayor. A Labour mayor now freed really as a third-term mayor, an unprecedented position to be in, freed from any real party attachment, isn't it? He's become a politician independent almost, I think, of the main party line. So he can say that. But Stephen Flynn is owning it for the SNP. Criticism of Israel, calls for cessation of arms sales, and that will be resonating with an awful lot of people that Keir Starmer, I think, has decided he doesn't need to worry about.
Potentially, although we've had a little bit of humility from the Labour Party in the last few days, acknowledging that some of their communities have not been voting for them over the issue of Israel and Gaza. And I thought, actually, Pat McFadden was very interesting on Lewis Goodall's show on Sunday, where he admitted that the Labour Party are looking at a big offer, something to do with an offer for the Palestinian people as part of their Labour manifesto. And we don't know what that looks like yet. Strong. But that would be something that I think, would reach out to those communities that may be losing Labour. So that's a really interesting development I think we will see. But yes, look, you see it from the two sides of the coin from the local election result. You've got on one hand Keir Starmer moving away from those, losing some of those votes from the Greens and from the Independents. But then on the other side, you've got Sadiq Khan hoovering them all up in order to defeat Susan Hall. So it's two very different.
Birmingham possibly even more significant in that equation. Actually, the defeat for Andy Street in Birmingham possibly even more significant. Okay, should we have a little bet?
Go on. I'm not a betting woman. I've told you this
really
before.
A betting man. I had a nightmare on the snooker this year.
Go on, try me.
It puts me off for another year. Actually, it was that bad. A third defection next Wednesday. Just yes or no?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no.
I'll say yes then.
Go on then. How much are we betting?
50p?
50p.
52p.
Why 52?
Come on. Think about the most...
48?
Yes.
Okay. That's not really enough for me to want to make this bet, to be honest.
Well, I don't want to embarrass you.